Have you ever felt like maybe you're better off alone? That the insanity of the world around you is too much, and that every attempt that you've ever made to be a part of it pushed you farther and farther away? Various methods of escapism exist, but you need that one that truly separates you from everything. Something where it feels like you're the only person on Earth and forces you into a situation where it's life or death, and the only person you can rely on is the only person that you've ever had: yourself. The Climber is a manga series developed by Yoshiro Nobeta and Shinichi Sakamoto, but eventually taken over completely by Sakamoto. It's loosely based on the real-life story about a mountain climber named Buntaro Kato, but uses that realism mostly just for a jumping-off point for a work of creative expression delving into the themes of loneliness, isolation, human connection, and all the while delivering breathtaking artwork both of various mountain landscapes and skylines themselves, as well as the abstract symbolism of the nightmares and struggles happening within the minds of our main character. The story focuses on a man named Mori who misfortune happens to follow everywhere he goes, and so he isolates himself wanting to be alone. And yet when he's transferred to a new school, some bullies especially are drawn to him and force him to climb the side of the school in order to stop making fun of him, assuming of course that he would chicken out and they could just make fun of him more. But Mori not only is capable of climbing the side of the building, but completely wows the bully, whose main talent is rock climbing. As well, in this moment, Mori finds a sense of passion within himself that he never knew existed. This physical exertion, this adrenaline of fear if he fails, and the feeling of victory when he reaches the top. It's something that he alone in this moment was capable of feeling, and it felt as though he was actually alive. A feeling that connected him to something that did not require anybody else. Mori begins a pursuit of rock climbing, and what begins as perhaps a typical sports or motivational manga, learning how to rock climb and getting advice from more experienced climbers, taking on smaller mountains as he builds up to more difficult obstacles and gets more skilled along the way. It's all pretty standard stuff and what you would expect. But where the manga excels, other than just the beautiful artwork, are in the more unexpected aspects of a story like this. The reason Mori is drawn to climbing is because it's something that he can do alone and still feel fulfillment. But it also becomes like an addiction and a distraction away from even attempting to form any human connections. See, early on, many of the other characters attempt to get him to understand the dangers that come along with climbing alone or even with free climbing. Weather can shift faster than expected, people go on these dangerous climbs and get buried within the snow, they slip and break their legs and end up freezing to death, and some bodies on mountain peaks are simply never recovered, and that's where they will forever lie. But still, he persists. The manga goes into a lot of specifics about climbing itself, the proper equipment that's needed, what different altitudes will do to our physical bodies and our abilities to take in oxygen. It's as extremely detailed as it could possibly be, and if you are interested in the sport of rock climbing, I'm sure there is a lot of valuable and accurate information here in the manga. The difficulty for Mori is not that he's not willing to try to make the climb, but specific areas he wants to go require funding to get there in the first place, or groups that he must join to do so. There's a sequence where there's a big team making a trek up the mountainside with him, and although there are attempts at connection here, none of which really particularly bond with him, before the crew begins to be taken out by the mountain one by one, taken out by the indifferent and unforgiving nature of the mountain itself. There's a powerful scene where one of the characters doesn't seem like he's going to make it, and he begs Mori to stay with him, opening up and sharing all about his life in order to keep him there, telling him as much information as possible. And Mori begins to lay next to him, a moment where Mori reflects that if he had died in that moment next to a friend, well, maybe that would have been all right. The character consistently isolates himself, and the manga draws a lot of attention to that, as well to his uncomfortability around women or when the potential of sex arises. As if he denies himself the opportunity of intimacy for fear of what it might lead to, being left alone again, having a broken heart, complications and drama that comes with it, and just the sheer inexperience of human connection. Perhaps it's easier to risk one's life on a mountaintop than it is to open up to the opposite sex. Moments of intimacy in the manga are drawn in sometimes absurdly abstract ways, but it's to emphasize that out-of-body feeling you get when you connect with another person and just let go. A feeling that he has never allowed himself to feel. Instead, just throwing himself back into climbing and picking the next most dangerous obstacle. A way where he can be free from all of humanity and on his own, isolated and symbolically able to breathe, ironically in a situation that makes it physically much more difficult to do so. But how long can one spend all alone before feeling inhuman, like maybe a monster, like something that should not even exist? These are issues and obstacles that the manga tackles, and in order to talk about it a little bit more, I have to give away a slight spoiler, so it's up to you if you want to continue the video or not. But I do think this is an important thing to talk about when talking about the story in general, because this story in the manga takes many different leaps in time, and although it begins with the main character in high school, it ends with him being much older, and we see various stages in this man's life. During his life, he eventually does find somebody, and his life changes. Just like most of us, if we examine our entire life from one point compared to another, it may look completely different and contradictory, or even make us seem like hypocrites. For a time, Mori's focus shifts. He finds love, he finds connection. However, the stark contrast of this from how he's known himself his entire life and that desire to climb still stays within him. Eventually, another man, Takemura, someone who now parallels Mori, someone who is alone and lost his potential at love and is still obsessed with climbing, convinces Mori to join him in their most dangerous mountain climb yet. A man alone with nothing to lose alongside another man who knows exactly what that feels like, but now with a reason to return. It creates some of the most interesting and compelling drama in the story, and the final third of this manga is absolutely the best. Their dynamic alongside the intense brutality of the cold, uncaring mountain that they ascend, added to the trippy abstract artwork that Sakamoto portrays as their inner thoughts and ideals, creates one hell of a nail-biting experience in the story's final act. The duality of who Mori was and who he is now is like a battle within his mind and heart, tearing him in either direction, and it's never exactly certain which side will win. I felt for both the characters so much. I understood the loneliness and isolation and why throwing yourself into something completely can sometimes be the only outlet you have for your mind and away from the pain that comes along with that loneliness. I also felt how desperately that I would want to return to my wife and child if I had them, and how far I would go to do so. On one hand, your life feels expendable as you are dedicated to nothing but the climb. On the other, the climb seems maybe less significant if you do have a place to return to. But imagine going your entire life without that place, and now suddenly you have one. When faced with sub-zero temperatures, avalanches, and the life of another human being by your side to contend with, how do you push yourself to keep going when any step may be your last? Do you continue to ascend, or do you attempt to descend? And is one going to be better than the other? The Climber is certainly a series about mountain climbing, but it manages to offer so much more than just that. Taking a deep, introspective look at an introverted character struggling to feel any sense of fulfillment and searching for ways to achieve this away from people. And its portrayal, despite the abstract art at times, is very realistic. When you look at athletes that dedicated themselves to a sport or artists that committed themselves to their creations, oftentimes the connective theme between them is that they do it all alone. But this is often both a byproduct of that dedication to something and also the fear of the unknown. It's sometimes easier to risk one's life in the pursuit of something that you understand than crash and burn in something that you feel like you're not even a part of to begin with. Nevertheless, The Climber should be an excellent read for anybody that's interested in either the activity itself or a character study of an extremely talented, introverted person. Let me know if you guys have read The Climber down below and what you thought of it. I thought the artwork was incredible, and I do think that the story continuously gets better as it goes along. The original writer of the story dropped out around volumes 3 and 4, and that's when Shinichi Sakamoto took over completely, and you can definitely tell the difference, although I do think that beginning portion is still important to the character, especially for building the changes that he goes along with throughout the rest of the story. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Leave all your thoughts and opinions down below about The Climber. Like the video to help it out in the algorithm. And if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have a Patreon, channel memberships, merch store, and all the social media links where you can follow me down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.